Welcome to the 8 worst foods that lead to fatty liver. In this eye-opening video, we will be revealing the detrimental impact of certain foods on your liver health and how you can avoid them to maintain a healthy liver. Fatty liver disease is becoming increasingly common worldwide, and the same dietary choices and lifestyle habits which can lead to this condition also damage your blood sugar balance. In fact, the American Diabetes Association says that liver disease affects up to 70% of people who already have type 2 diabetes. But what exactly is fatty liver disease? And what specific foods should you avoid to lower your risk of developing this serious diabetes-related condition? Let's investigate the 8 worst foods that lead to fatty liver. If the fat content within your liver exceeds 10% of your liver's weight, you will be diagnosed with fatty liver disease, or hepatic steatosis. Fatty liver can lead to inflammation, scarring, and even irreversible damage if left untreated. While initial symptoms include fatigue, abdominal discomfort, and a general feeling of unwellness, over time, it can escalate into severe complications such as cirrhosis or even liver failure. And while having diabetes greatly increases your risk of fatty liver disease, you don't have to be diabetic to worry about this deadly condition. In fact, studies show that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease now affects around 25% of adults worldwide. That's why it's crucial to know which foods help your liver and which foods may be putting your body at risk for fatty liver. So, let's get this list started off with the most obvious food that leads to fat accumulation in the liver: alcoholic beverages. Of course, too much alcohol can be toxic for anyone and everyone, and it can deal big damage to your liver, as this is your body's primary detoxification organ. So drinking too much can put a huge strain on your liver, and it can cause inflammation and scarring, known as cirrhosis. Over time, cirrhosis can severely impact liver function. Plus, when alcohol is metabolized in the liver, it produces the chemical compound acetaldehyde, a toxic substance that can damage liver cells. And studies show that overconsumption of alcoholic beverages can disrupt the balance between fat breakdown and fat storage in the liver, thus leading to an accumulation of liver fat. Furthermore, these drinks have been shown to increase appetite, which may cause you to binge on unhealthy fat and sugar-filled foods, further increasing the chances of adding fat to your liver. So, stick to or stay under the recommended limits: 1 drink a day at most for women, and 2 at most for men. But even that amount may be too high if you wish to avoid a fatty liver, so it's best to have at least a few alcohol-free days per week. In fact, a recent gastroenterology and hepatology study revealed that moderate to heavy drinkers who abstained from alcohol for 1 month experienced significant improvements to their weight, blood pressure, liver function tests, and their insulin resistance. Margarine. This artificial butter is made from vegetable oils that are put through a hydrogenation process, which is what makes margarine solid at room temperature. But it also creates trans fats, the infamous type of artificial fat that has been linked to obesity, diabetes, and fatty liver disease. Trans fats are considered to be unsaturated, but they are unlike other healthy fats, mainly because they act much like saturated fats once inside the body, clogging arteries and increasing body fat. Trans fats also lead to the formation of advanced glycation end products, toxic compounds, which damages artery lining and may cause arteries to harden and become blocked. Indeed, research has shown that trans fatty acid intake can directly result in raised levels of artery clogging LDL cholesterol, at the same time causing levels of cardiovascular aiding HDL cholesterol to drop. This can lead to a buildup of fat within the liver. Additionally, scientists believe that trans fatty acids promote inflammation and oxidative stress in the liver, which further increases liver fat accumulation. While many brand name margarine products claim to have 0 trans fats, this can be misleading. In fact, a recent FDA analysis confirmed that several zero trans fat margarine products actually contained measurable amounts of trans fat content. So, avoid trans fatty acids by avoiding margarine. But you can skip the high saturated fat within normal butter by choosing mono and polyunsaturated fat options, like butters and oils made from avocados, almonds, and cashews. What other types of butter and cooking oil can raise your risk of a fatty liver? That's coming up shortly. First, even though we know you love them, we must recommend against over-consuming French fries and other deep-fried foods. Deep-fried foods are popular for their addictive taste and satisfying texture. Of course, French fries are typically full of artery-clogging saturated fat, and they are loaded with calories. But it's the cooking process which makes these treats so dangerous to your liver. Just like margarine, the cooking process for deep frying, where foods are submerged in hot oil, involves hydrogenation, thus leading to the formation of those harmful trans fatty acids. In fact, many, if not most restaurants, reuse their cooking oil over multiple batches of French fries, which increases their trans fat content. And you already know the deal with obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and fatty liver disease linked trans fat. But the negative nutrition of French fries doesn't end there. French fries and other fried foods are also high in blood pressure increasing sodium. Excessive salt consumption can lead to liver damaging inflammatory and fibrotic effects. And high sodium diets have been linked to several diabetes related issues, including hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease, and fat accumulation in the liver. Plus, French fries and other deep-fried foods are coated in refined carbohydrates, which are rapidly digested in the body and may lead to a dangerous blood sugar spike while also increasing fat storage in the abdomen and the liver. Refined carbohydrates also trigger inflammation and oxidative stress throughout the body, which can damage arteries, increasing the risk of heart disease. So, avoid deep-fried French fries and other fried foods. Instead, try baked sweet potato fries. They supply far more nutritional benefits, they are free from trans fats, and if you bake them at home, you can control the sodium content. Are you finding this video useful? If so, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more tips and tricks on fighting back against high blood sugar and fatty liver. Next up, though it may be a mainstay in your kitchen, you should try your best to cut back on white rice. White rice is a dietary staple for billions of people worldwide, but that just makes this seemingly innocuous food item all the more dangerous. Because white rice is a triple threat. It is high in calories, sodium, and simple carbohydrates. At the same time, refined white rice is extremely low in fiber. This makes white rice a high glycemic food, meaning it can lead to a short-term blood sugar spike and long-term insulin resistance. In fact, an American Journal of Clinical Nutrition study showed that diets which include large amounts of high glycemic index foods, especially white rice, can lead to insulin resistance and the development of fatty liver disease. A study in the World Journal of Gastroenterology found that excessive calorie consumption, often associated with high white rice intake, can also contribute to the accumulation of fat in the liver. And a Journal of Hepatology study noted that eating large quantities of food that are low in fiber, including white rice, may also lead to the increase of a liver fat. Plus, in some cases, white rice may contain worrisome amounts of arsenic, a toxic compound linked to heart disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. Brown rice actually tends to contain higher levels of arsenic than white rice, but it also supplies much higher concentrations of beneficial vitamins, minerals, and blood sugar stabilizing fiber. So, in general, it's best to cut back on your rice consumption and choose brown over white. Next, stay away from canned soups. Soup often seems like a hearty, nutrient-rich choice, and that can be true, especially if you make your soup at home, from scratch. But Food Corporation-produced canned soups, in general, supply the same triple whammy as white rice. They tend to be high in sodium, calories, and carbohydrates, with many canned soups being especially high in added sugars. On top of all that, just like white rice, you can count on most any canned soup to contain close to no fiber. The most notorious addition for most canned soups is their high concentration of sodium. Studies prove that consuming too much salt causes oxidative stress and inflammation in the liver, which can lead to liver fibrosis. Of course, excess sodium consumption is also linked to other metabolic disorders that may cause further damage to your liver, including insulin resistance and hypertension. Meanwhile, in order to extend their shelf life and enhance their flavor, packaged soup products are usually filled with unhealthy chemical preservatives, emulsifiers, and added simple sugars, which can lead to post-meal glucose spikes and heightened insulin resistance. These additions have also been associated with gut microbiome disruption, and they will only serve to further raise the risk of developing diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and fatty liver disease. Next, one of the worst foods for your liver isn't a food. It's soft drinks. You're probably well aware that many, if not most, sodas are filled to the brim with calories and sugar. But the danger for your liver lies in the specific type of sugar found in these drinks. We're talking about high fructose corn syrup. This highly processed artificial sweetener cannot be metabolized normally. It gets rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream, causing an almost immediate and damaging blood sugar spike. And instead of being used as fuel for your muscles, it gets sent to your liver, where it is stored as fat. In fact, a recent animal trial found that mice on high fructose diets developed fatty livers, and they also experienced high rates of liver tumors. But don't think you'll avoid the dangers of soft drinks if you go for diet sodas. Diet drinks may be free from high amounts of calories and sugar, but food manufacturers make up for the decrease in flavor by adding artificial sweeteners like saccharin and aspartame. Artificial sweeteners are actually several times sweeter than natural sugar, so this phantom sugar can cause a very real insulin response, which may then force extra insulin to float freely through your bloodstream. Over time, regularly consuming artificial sweeteners can heighten insulin resistance. In fact, a recent study even concluded that participants who regularly drank diet soda had a 67% increase in type 2 diabetes and a 36% increase of metabolic syndrome, the overarching group of conditions associated with diabetes, heart disease, and liver disease. Now, at the dinner table, or even for your next lunch sandwich, you should think twice before eating processed meats. What constitutes a processed meat? These products undergo certain methods of preservation and flavor enhancement, like curing, smoking, and heavy salting, before these meats hit store shelves. Examples include hot dogs, deli meats, and even that precious bacon. And while these meats are famous for their mouth-watering tastes, they are also now well known for their high concentrations of liver-damaging sodium and artery-clogging saturated fats. Processed meats are also notorious for being pumped full of nitrates, compounds that prevent bacterial buildup, which extends their shelf life. But while naturally occurring nitrates, such as those found in spinach, kale, and beets, can be beneficial to your health, added nitrates, like those found in deli meats and bacon, get broken down into carcinogenic nitrosamines. The FDA says high exposure to nitrosamines can raise the risk of developing multiple forms of cancer, including bladder, esophagus, and liver cancer. But that's not the end of the negative nutrition of processed meats. They have also been found to contain advanced glycation end products, those toxic compounds that increase the risk of fatty liver disease. In fact, a Journal of Hepatology study of over 1,000 participants found that those with the highest intake of processed meats had a 57% higher risk of developing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease than participants who consumed little to no processed meats. One study even showed that consuming just 50 grams of processed meat daily, which is smaller than the size of your palm, can increase your risk of colon cancer by 18%. And an American Journal of Gastroenterology review concluded that diets high in processed meats were consistently associated with an increased risk of obesity, insulin resistance, and fatty liver disease. So, if you're worried about a fatty liver, it might be time to cut out, or at least cut way down, on your intake of processed meat. Okay, so when it comes to lowering your risk of fatty liver disease, what food might you want to avoid over all others? Beware of vegetable oils. Vegetable oils cover a wide range of cooking oils, some of which are less healthy than others. So, which ones can hurt your liver? Specifically, beyond canola oil, most oils labeled as vegetable have been found to be potentially toxic for your liver. We're talking about soybean, sunflower, cottonseed, and palm oils. What makes these oils so harmful? First, they have low smoke points, meaning they have a low temperature at which they begin to break down and release toxic, liver-damaging compounds. Plus, most vegetable oils are extremely high in omega-6 fats. Scientists believe humans should only consume 0.5% of their total calories from omega-6 fats. And yet, studies show that Americans, on average, consume nearly 10% of their daily calories from this type of fat. This can be largely attributed to the use of these vegetable oils in restaurants, fast food chains, and home kitchens. The omega-6 fat linoleic acid in many store-sold vegetable oils has been found to be particularly harmful to your liver. In fact, studies have shown that consuming large amounts of linoleic acid can increase the risk of developing liver inflammation, fat accumulation, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Studies have further found that consuming omega-6 fats can contribute to oxidative stress in the liver, which can lead to impaired liver function. Research has also revealed that high intake of omega-6s from vegetable oils may worsen insulin resistance. And again, avoid French fries and other restaurant-created deep-fried foods, where they are sure to be cooked with the cheapest and most damaging vegetable oils, while also being cooked in reheated oils, which increases the trans fat content. Instead, cook from home as much as possible, and switch up your cooking oils by reaching for healthier options that include more monounsaturated fats. Try olive oil or even avocado oil. Also, while canola oil is considered to be a vegetable oil, it has a high smoke point and a good amount of monounsaturated fat content, giving it a better omega-3 to omega-6 ratio than other vegetable oils. But in general, for the sake of your liver, it's best to avoid overdoing your vegetable oil intake.